And there we go. All right, we're set. Hello, everybody. It is good to see you again. Sorry, I've not been on here much. The only thing I've done in the last couple of weeks is I went on Caniac sessions a couple of nights ago when we did that. So this is going to be a pretty big catch up stream and everything. Not like catch up like you put on fries, even though that's good stuff too. But Sam, excuse me, Sam Driscoll from the Caniac Report, him and I went down to see the Canes play in Sunrise. And boy, that was that was something. He will be on here on the show shortly to let's see who else we got in the comments here. Oh, awesome. We got comments in here. I'll get to that in just one moment. But Sam Driscoll will be here with us momentarily to talk about the trip and everything. We had a whole lot of fun. And nope, don't start that. I already walked you. My dog does that just to piss me off. He likes to agitate people. I don't know where he got that from. But let me get to the comments here, and then I'll tell you guys what the rest of the topics are going to, or let me tell you what the rest of the topics are going to be, and then we'll talk, and then we'll get to the comments. So one, I'm making some content-related changes. I'm going to go into detail as to why I'm doing that. It has to do with some of the things that have been going on lately with how the NHL is being a little bit more stringent in regards to usage of their footage than they were before. I don't know why he's doing that now. I'm not doing it, bro. They're being a little bit more stringent about the use of their footage, so that kind of hampers some of the stuff I wanted to do, and you couldn't monetize it anyway. So even though I don't use it much, I'm going to be using it even less. Number two, when it comes to the content changes, I am planning on moving a little bit more towards using flow hockey stuff and doing prospect content, because with what the NHL is doing now with copywriting footage, it's not just resulting in copyright claims, which are ultimately inconsequential because, you don't get strikes for that, but they've been striking people, and they said it was an accident, but I don't buy that for a multitude of reasons. They've been striking people, and if you get 3 of those in 30 days, the channel gets nuked on the YouTube side of things. So I'm not going to be doing that personally. I'm not going to let that happen. And what annoys me about it, it's a long, hell, this might get my channel nuked, me saying this, but I'm going to say it, so bookmark it. A lot of this goes back to Gary Bettman is not good at chasing the long dollar. He always goes for the short-term payout. That's how the NHL ended up on Outdoor Life Network post-lockout, because that's exactly what it needed for popularity. That's really what it needed. And that's how the NHL ends up in bad TV deals like they have with ESPN, with substandard, mediocre commentary on TNT. I'll just be straight with you guys. That's what I think about it. Not being able to see things long-term in order to grow the game is how you end up with mediocre fools like Eddie Olczyk on national broadcasts. And even watching him when he's like covering two teams or commentating on two teams he doesn't hate, because he clearly hates the Hurricanes and he doesn't have the balls to just come out and say it's because of his brother, then, it's just they need to go in a different direction with the broadcasting, the marketing, all that type of stuff, and they just won't do it. And we've seen this all happen before. It happened right after the lockout. They had a pretty good thing going with NBC as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't perfect by any means. It was definitely flawed. But ESPN now, they're never going to win the fans over, in my opinion. I don't know anybody who likes ESPN's coverage, and I think TNT is passable a lot of days, but for the most part, I don't think it's very good either. So that's really all I have to say about that at the moment. And since I'm going to flow hockey more, I want to start doing some more stuff in regards to some of the prospects and with the SPHL, as well. As you guys know, I care very much about that league. So I want to start having more content in regards to that. So that's where you'll see anytime that I clip videos, that's going to be mostly where it's from for the most part from here on out. Okay, I guess this dog actually does have to walk. I'm going to have to delay the start of this a little bit more. But then the last topic, other than general state of the Canes stuff, is going to be okay, I guess he really does have to walk, even though I walked him earlier. I will be right back. Okay, he legitimately had to go. He wasn't BSing me for once.
Hey, I got a dog.
Yeah, but yours doesn't just randomly run around like a maniac because you hit the record button. I think mine does that just to piss me off sometimes.
No, she's laying on the bed.
She looks like she's out.
She's looking back now. I think you could see her if I turn just a little bit. There she is.
Hi, baby. Such a sweet dog. She fucked my foot up that one time, but I know she wasn't trying to hurt me. Where she Wolverine the shit out of me when I was crashing with you that night?
Oh yeah, no, she that's why she gets now she's looking pitiful. She's apologizing.
It's okay. I forgive you, girl. So anyway, now that we got all that out of the way, you and I met up and went to Amaranth Bank Arena.
Correct.
And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I thought it was a great experience to hit a road game. It was my first one. I know you've done several, mainly because you go to the games in Washington. But I mean, it was great. I loved that stadium.
That arena is nice. It really is. It was so easy to get to everything in there. You didn't have to like fight a huge crowd or anything.
Well, not always a huge crowd at that stadium.
Yeah, that's true. But what was really funny about it to me, so it's like, okay, so you went to Orlando first and you stayed with your friend that came to the game with you.
Yep.
So Desiree and I, and you know, she's going to be a focal point in this story because she doesn't know shit about hockey, and you know what she said at the game, and you were like, well, yeah. But we stayed in Fort Lauderdale, and that was a whole lot of fun. But here was what was the funniest thing to me about it. I've never sat up that high, and I didn't think I'd like it. Yeah. And I absolutely loved it. So I think I'm going to start doing that a little bit more often when I do go to games. I think I might sit in the 200s next time at Capital One or something along those lines. And one of the other funny things about it, it was in the first period. My girlfriend does not know much about sports. It's not really her thing. And you heard what she said. She's like, how are they not getting more goals? And I was like, holy fucking shit. She's below a casual fan. She only goes because, you know, she does it to spend time with me. And she'll like sit there and watch games with me in the living room sometimes. She has no idea what's going on there. But even she could understand why we get frustrated that this team spends entire games practically in the offensive zone and then loses 3-2 with 90 shot attempts and 40 of them on net. And honestly, if it hadn't been for Matthew Tkachuk being a moron, we might not have won that game.
Yeah. Yeah. And we found out real quick that Floridians don't know a lot about hockey.
Dude, I've never, like, people talk about them having the ref you suck chance at Lenovo Center. I've never heard one that went on for that long. And the funny thing about it was, I took it a little far with this, but I got into an argument with somebody shortly after that game online. And they were saying that Kotkaniemi should have gotten a goaltender interference penalty, that he fell on his own going in. And I even took screenshots and I pointed out, I'm like, this is not Kotkaniemi's stick. This is Matthew Tkachuk's stick. The bigger problem with it is, and the league needs to start cracking down on shit like this. They never will, but they should. This type of shit happens way too often. Kotkaniemi's down there in the crease. And he can't get up because Matthew Tkachuk is holding him by the ear loop of his helmet and keeping him pinned down in the crease. That's why Bobrovsky didn't get a chance to make the save when Slavin took the shot and scored.
Yep.
I have a bigger problem with that from a safety standpoint because there's skate blades in there.
Yeah.
There's flying pucks.
Yeah.
They're going to play till the whistle. They're professionals. It's the same thing like when Marchand ripped off Jalen Chatfield's helmet and a puck could have potentially hit him in the head a couple of years ago and they didn't even call so much as a minor penalty. That's the type of stuff I think the league really needs to start cracking down on because there is no rational reason why Matthew Tkachuk just didn't get up and try to play defense in that particular situation. Not that he's good at it, but holding KK there down in the crease when he tripped him in the first place, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. It was. I mean, it gave us the game, and cool. But yeah, I mean, I think Kachuk should have had a hearing for that because it was dangerous.
Yeah, and I would say that if any of our guys did it, I really would. It's like that. Here's what I think when it comes to plays like that. If you rip somebody's helmet off and it's clear as day, that automatically should be a major in a game misconduct. You're out. Like that
Yeah.
should be that. Now, I'm not
Mhm.
talking about like a post whistle scrum and guys are ripping each other's helmets off. And I'm not talking about anything like that. But when you're talking about the puck is in play, you are physically playing. And you do what Brad Marchand did to Jalen Chatfield a couple of years ago, right in front of the damn net of all places, that should be a game misconduct, and at minimum, a phone call immediately. That is just as dangerous, if not more, than slew footing, hitting people in the numbers, targeting the head. Because if I have a choice between taking an elbow to the head and a puck to the head, I'll take the elbow, please.
Yeah.
So that's the type of stuff that I think the league needs to start really cracking down on. Otherwise, you're looking at serious injury or death in the right situation.
Yeah, it's it's a dangerous situation there. Kachuk knows better, but that's his game. And until he gets a serious fine or a suspension, he's not going to stop. And I don't know if the league doesn't really punish the better. They don't punish the Kachucks and Wilsons of the world
Not as much as they should.
Because it's not good. It's not good for the money.
Yeah. And the other funny thing about it to me is like, I don't know, man. I just don't see how nobody at the league just sits there and looks at that situation going, okay, that wasn't bad yet, but it can get there if you don't do something about that. And, it's like, okay, when it comes to if you hit somebody in the numbers and charging or leaving the feet wasn't involved, you might have the argument of, well, he turned at the last minute or the last second. You might have that. But ripping someone's helmet off or holding them down in the crease are two things that should be clear as day. Not a problem. Then the other thing, when it comes to fines, there's no such thing as a consequential fine in this league because the maximum allowable is $5,000. That doesn't hurt anybody in this league unless you're on an ELC. Them and their family will starve for a few minutes. That's it. On a $5,000 fine, $5,000 fines don't send a message.
No, not to players who make millions.
No, yeah, that $5,000 doesn't mean anything, especially if you live in Florida where there's no state income tax.
Yeah, that's just your like weekly tax break that you get right there that you just have to give back.
That's literally it. It's like I wouldn't be too opposed to them removing the fine part and going straight into warning, suspension. That being the like escalation there. Because I'm sorry, a $5,000 fine doesn't do anything. But yeah, how about this? Tell us about what you did over the course of the trip from when you got there to the actual game itself, because I think you left the next day, right?
Yeah, so because the storm was coming in through the East Coast, didn't really hit North Carolina, but for example, my plane that I was leaving with that day after was from Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So I was even delayed leaving that next day because my plane had ice on it up in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So, it would have been a risk leaving on Saturday, not knowing where my plane was coming from to get home. So, but when I came down, came down to Fort Lauderdale about on the Saturday before the game, or to Orlando the Saturday before the game to hang out with my buddy. Spend New Year's, have just a week off from work. Got delayed almost 3 hours coming down. Was literally insane. Someone screamed really loud at that airport, freaked everybody out.
That's not a good place to do that.
No, still not. I think someone was just really angry they didn't get on the plane. But I never really heard a full story about what actually happened there. But yeah, everybody turned their head and looked and was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, and see, that was also not the best time frame for it because one, it's around holiday time frame, and like without me talking about what I do for a living, what I do for a living. Why are you not here? Dude, the frame froze just as soon as he peeked into it, so he was there a little bit longer than what he actually was. Does he want to jump on? I'll give him a link.
You want to hop on?
Do you see me?
Yeah. Do you want to hop on?
Yeah, why not?
He said he'll hop on if you want.
Yeah, I'll send him a link real quick. Give me 1 second, please. But yeah, and then here it got kind of crazy. Okay, so I love going to Florida. I would never want to live there though. The reason being because part of the reason we're moving to Charleston, South Carolina is because the climate there is kind of similar to Florida, and we like that. Florida has a lot of crazy ass people in it though, and it seems that they're in excess there. Not necessarily in the Panhandle because I was stationed there and I really liked it there, but I love Florida, but I could never live there because of things like this. So the first full day that we were there in Fort Lauderdale, we're walking down the street and we're I forget where we were. We had either just walked out of the CVS because we were grabbing some stuff or something like that. And we hear this loud ass crash and, the distinct sound of a car wreck. And let me get this link sent to Sam, the other Sam. All right, there we go. But we hear this really loud crash. And this dude, he's got his windows down and he drives right around the guy that he hit, bumper hanging off and everything, remorseless ass look on his face, window down, in this old ass Jaguar goes by us. And then the other car that he hit goes chasing him, and there's pedestrians and shit fucking everywhere. And we were like, wow, all right, we weren't expecting that. And then right after you had the unfortunate terrorist attack that happened in New Orleans, it's January 1st, it's my birthday, and I don't know what it was. I think someone played a fireworks prank, but we're walking down the street and there's a bunch of people running one direction, and we're like, what's going on? And then we hear a loud boom and everybody fucking panics. And me, I was just like, I'm not going to panic in this situation. And we just kind of put some pep in our step. Everybody else is running, but we're just kind of doing a brisk jog to get out of the way. And we go upstairs to one of the little upstairs bar and restaurant things there. And we hung out there, and there were people huddled in the corner panicking. And me and my girlfriend are just kind of sitting at the bar it can't be that big of a deal. Otherwise something bad would have happened. But there were a bunch of cops showed up. We never found out what it was, but I would bet that somebody did something stupid with a firework. And everybody thought it was a fucking IED or something.
I would believe that. It's Florida.
Yeah. And then it was so they did that. And this was right after, like I said, right after the New Orleans thing. And yeah, it was just that bar was a complete ghost town. Me and my girlfriend were the only two in there. Everybody else ran. And the security officer came back up there and we asked her, hey, did you ever find out what happened? And she said, no, we don't know yet. The police blockaded the whole thing off. But yeah, it was definitely some GTA 6 trailer simulator bullshit. And I was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. I'm just going to stay here until all this is done. But yeah, that's why I could never live in Florida. But I do enjoy visiting.
Yeah, it's always I've always enjoyed myself going down there. My buddy and I hung out, played video games, bar hopped ourselves at some of the resorts. It was fun. It was a good time before having to get back to the grind of things, start the year at work.
Yeah, that's never fun. And then I think our next road game, or my last road game of the year, is going to be Philadelphia because it's only 2.5 hour drive from here. I'm surprised I've never done it, but I don't want to go by myself either. I might have to see if I can meet up with my friend Liam Atkinson from Black Stitch Hockey or Derek Dunn or one of those guys that I follow, so they could be like, hey, he's cool.
I mean, that'd be fun. My next one's going to be in Minnesota.
Oh, cool. When's that? When do they play them again?
First week of February. So a friend of mine introduced me a while back, but I'm going with my girlfriend. If you've seen our episodes, I had to wear a Wild shirt during one of them because we lost the Wild, and that was the bet that we had. Is she would have to wear a Hurricane shirt all day, which she has, and I'd have to wear a Wild shirt on the podcast, which I did. And so that was fun. But we're going to the Wild game, so I have to be tame because I don't want her to hit me.
Yeah. I definitely would like to go to Minnesota one day. I think I'm going to try to hit every NHL arena. Sam Wallace, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. No, we're just sitting here talking about the Florida trip, and then I got some other stuff lined up here for however long you guys want to be here. I'm waiting on drunk AB to text me, "Hey, bro, are you still alive? Can I join?" I'm like, no, we're not. He's like, "But I see you." I'm like, that's pre-recorded, but it says live. It's a glitch. I love that guy, but it's really fun to just mess with him. But yeah, then after we got done with the game, we went on a cruise the next day, and it was an all right experience. It was better than the last time I was on water, but I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, well, I've not been on one myself. I've wanted to go on a cruise at some point. But I can't say, Florida's crazy, but for you going to Philly for a road game, I've seen some crazy clips there. At least for me, I get to deal with the Minnesota nice. So, I'm not going to deal with too many, Minnesotans are nice folks. So I'm
Yeah,
not
they are.
expecting to deal with anything crazy. Plus, yeah, I think it'll be a fun game. Minnesota's a heck of a hockey team, and they're a fun hockey team. I still believe that a Stanley Cup final between the Hurricanes and the Wild, or the Hurricanes and the Dallas Stars, would be two of the most enjoyable Stanley Cup finals that we could watch.
The Hurricanes and Dallas Stars is one I'm pretty confident will eventually happen. It's just because their windows are lined up about the same. There's a lot of similarities in those teams. They both have really good defense. Like ours is going to be even better starting next year. And I'm really like, what's funny to me right now. Yes, Ferry Kokoniemi was the most controversial guy on this team for what it seemed like a long time that wasn't a goalie. And now it seems like people are having more discussions about Burns than they are about KK.
Well, I think KK's having a decent season.
I do too.
I think he's having a better season than he did last year. And I thought he was actually pretty good in Florida.
I did too.
I thought Burns was actually okay in Florida. Really, the only person in that game that I just wanted to ragdoll off the ice was Ty Smith, who just infuriated me in that game.
Yeah, Ty Smith did some things that, like, if Tony DeAngelo had done a fraction of, people would have wanted him to be executed publicly on Glenwood Avenue.
Like, it was horrible. He was awful, god awful, and I can't. I'm glad there is a clear need. If you don't trust Riley Smith, you don't trust Morrow, you can't tell me you trust. Riley Stillman, you can't tell me you trust Ty Smith more than those guys. There's no way Ty Smith is not capable of doing it. Like, I mean, anybody but Ty Smith. And if you don't trust the other guys, you got to go get a defenseman at the deadlines for depth purposes. You don't need to go get some. How I've always described the kind of need for Carolina. He doesn't play anymore, but it's that Mark Stahl defenseman, right? Mm-hmm. That 6th, 7th defenseman that's not going to cost you anything. He's older, but he's capable and cheap, and that's just what they need.
That's what the Rangers did with going out and getting Ruedel last season.
Yeah.
Sam, you go ahead. Other Sam.
Well, that Florida game, I remember when I watched it at TV. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the game, but I thought that was a good game from Carolina. Very hard fought. They dominated the first 20 minutes. As I remembered.
You probably didn't see this before, but my girlfriend doesn't know shit about hockey. I don't think she knew the difference between a hockey stick and a baseball bat until her and I started dating. I really don't. Sports is just not her thing. She goes to go with me and spend time with me. But during the first period, and Sam witnessed this, and you should have seen the smile on his face. It was a very ha-ha, I told you so, but also like, I'm sad inside smile. She's like, how are the Hurricanes not scoring more? She doesn't know anything about hockey. And she was noticing that.
Yeah, that's how dominant the Hurricanes were in that first period. Now, you can't expect them to play the full 60 like that because they're just up. I would say they were up 3 levels. And that's probably one of the rare times I've seen them play throughout this whole season that good. But they still won the game, which is excellent. And I just loved the fact that you had a guy in Matthew Tkachuk just trying to keep KK in his place. Then you have Slavin coming in with the puck, and he scores the game-winning goal.
We actually had an extensive discussion about that right before you jumped on. So here's something I think. Here was the conclusion Sam and I came to together. If you rip someone's helmet off during play, I'm not talking about like a post-whistle scrum or anything like that. If you rip someone's helmet off during play, or if you hold them down in the crease like Matthew Tkachuk did, or if you do that anywhere where there's the potential for there to be a shot taken, like if it's below the goal line or anywhere like that, or even below the circle, I would say. I think that automatically should be 5 game misconduct and looked at by the league without a second thought. Same thing goes for like when Jalen Chatfield got his helmet ripped off by Brad Marchand a couple of years ago in front of the net of all places. Like, that could have been bad. The league needs to start addressing stuff like that, but as one of the comments said in here, which we'll get to in a moment, it's very reactionary, but I feel like those things are like really situations that eventually one is going to be consequential if they don't like tamper it down. Now, that's not good hockey, holding someone by their ear loop down in the crease, and other people, you know, the best argument they have about it is, oh, cry about it. And I'm like, yeah, someone will if someone gets fucking injured very badly from that.
Yeah, well, I think part of it's too is, I mean, you look at the state of hockey in the NHL, it's already a rough game as it is. You don't need more unnecessary roughness in it.
I agree.
Need speed. You need speed and skill. That's what sells the game.
You just gave your dog belly rubs, didn't you?
I did. She's laying.
Yeah, it's a very distinct sound. But yeah,
she was playing with. She got a little hot cocoa mug and she was chewing on it next to me. So she kind of likes it when I throw it for her sometimes.
Aw. But yeah, so like that was something that we were all in agreement on. And another thing that I was talking about, well, he talked about it too, obviously, but like the $5,000 fine, I think that they should just get rid of that because that doesn't send a message to anybody. It's just like, it's kind of like,
No,
that's like if you find me, like disproportionately speaking for my income, it's more consequential for me to get a traffic ticket than it is for them to get a $5,000 fine. Like $5,000 fine doesn't send a message. You might as well just remove that and have the escalation be warning, suspension. That's it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do agree with that. I think we need to see more game suspensions. And heck, I think if it's the team as a whole that does something illegal, do what you did with, what was it, Arizona at the time, and take away their draft picks.
Dallas just got fined too.
Yeah. I mean,
but yeah, that's something I think that like, especially the helmet being ripped off during play thing, I think that like that needs to stop like now. Brooks Orpik used to be really bad about doing that too. Obligatory fuck you, Brooks Orpik. All right, let's get to some of the comments here, and then I'll pull up the other stuff. If you guys look in the private chat, you'll see what all the topics I had there were. If you have anything else that you want to bring up, be my guest to type it in there, and we'll do it.
Well, if we're actually finished up with the Florida game, I might jump off myself.
Okay, no, that's all I really had to say about it, unless you guys got anything else to say about anything.
Oh, I think it's fun to go on road trip. I mean, really, if you are local and you really only go to Lenovo Center, I've only been to one. I'm really excited for the second one, because Minnesota, it's a state of hockey, so they have to put on a great atmosphere and great show up there. And then Florida, that arena was fantastic. So my goal is to keep going to more. So I'm looking forward to it. My plan next year is at least Columbus, Tampa. Maybe a Canadian market.
Hey, you might have a chance to go to a Columbus playoff game with the way they're playing.
Yeah, it's true. I could go up to Columbus for a quick game. That I would actually do.
Oh, and another cool thing in Minnesota, the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame is there.
Very nice. Okay.
Really?
Like I don't know how far. The U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame is there. I don't know how far it is from St. Paul, though. I'll tell you in 2 seconds.
I'll have to ask. Well, I'll have to ask my girlfriend. I'm sure she knows.
Yeah, she's from there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then she'll definitely know. Yeah, it's only 2 hours and 43 minutes away. That might be a worthwhile trip because I'm not going to the actual Hockey Hall of Fame until they put Brendamore in there, so I'm probably never going to go.
Well, as long as you're on.
Isn't Brendamore Canadian?
No, I'm saying like Brendamore's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I'm saying I will go to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, but I will never go to the Hockey Hall of Fame until they put Brendamore in there. Yeah, sorry, I worded that poorly. Y'all should know by now. Don't take me serious.
Well, it was a great trip, Brandon. We got to do it again. I'll hit a Caps game with you at some point for sure.
We'll try for April 10th, but considering Ovi's going to be close or if not past it by then, I'm not going to take a seat away from somebody who would actually appreciate that because I clearly wouldn't. Like when Aho's knocking on the door of 1,000 points, that would be my game to want to do something like that. So and Jacob Slavin is probably getting near his 10,000th takeaway by now. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's fair. That is very fair. Well,
Speaking of Slavin, I want to say this with Sam on the air. Last
oh,
night during the game, he has mentioned how poorly Slavin has played in that Buffalo game 10 freaking times. I'm like, I get it, dude. Let it go. I agree he wasn't good, but stop bringing that up.
yeah, but Jacob Slavin has like one bad game every 5 years.
Yeah, and then see, it happened.
Gosh.
It had happened, and Sam was sitting next to me, so I just kept poking at it. I was like, Slavin, like, I refused to clap for him when they announced that he was in the starting line. I'm like, no, he's in my doghouse. And then I was like, he played so bad, and I kept saying it over and over again. Oh, he played so bad. He played so bad. Drove Sam nuts last night.
Oh, so it was like me with the Brady Shea thing.
Yeah,
where I just dogged the guy at random, even though I didn't dislike him at all. It's just funny to do now.
It was annoying. So if he keeps doing it, Brandon, I might need a new co-host.
I'm already on this and Caniac sessions, but I'll try to make it work.
Well, I'm gonna let you guys talk the other topics, but after the game in Minnesota, I'll have to review that stadium and team too, because that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that will be great. But yeah, and eventually Atlanta's going to get another team.
Yeah.
And I'll only be 4 hours away from there, so you guys can like come down to Charleston, and then we'll drive from there to Atlanta. My dream is to hopefully go to a Canes game there in like March, April timeframe, and I get to go see the Braves at the same time. So that would be really cool, because I've never been to a Braves home game. Only MLB ballpark I've ever been in is up here. I've never been near one until I lived here.
Well, I'm going to hop off, you guys. Thanks for having me, as always. It's always fun to chat.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. We're definitely going to do more road games, though.
Sounds fun to me.
All right.
I'll stay on for a little bit.
Dude, I'm glad you're going to, because we got some pretty cool stuff to talk about. If you come up, I'm going to go through the comments. If you come up with any other topics other than what I've already got in here in the private chat, let me know, and we'll add those in too. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll throw that in.
I don't see anything in the private chat but is there another way to look at it?
Okay, I'll just tell you. So One of the things I was talking about, I'm doing a few content changes because the NHL has been kind of douchey about footage. That's why I haven't released the second part of my Jacob Slavin series yet. I'm kind of reluctant to. The Florida trip, what me and Sam were just talking about. And then the third thing was, even though we've talked about like the state of the Canes stuff a little bit, or that was the fourth thing actually, the third thing was some really early trade deadline talk, because that is slowly coming up. We're at that point where teams do start to make trades, because January is where you start seeing some things happen, and then it picks up and it picks up and it picks up until the deadline normally. So if you want, we can just go into that, and I'll tell you who I have. Personally, I have 3 dream targets, of which they'll never happen. They're absolute pipe dreams, and I have 2 realistic ones. My dream trade targets are Tage Thompson and Dylan Larkin. Not happening. No way. I will tell you why I want each one of those individual guys. Alex Tuck is kind of in between of like, hey, maybe it's a pipe dream, maybe it's not. And then when you get to realistic targets, I see Dylan Cousins and Ryan O'Reilly. That's 2 guys that I look at for a multitude of different reasons. So like, I'm going to do the primer on this, but eventually I'm going to do an individual video about Cousins, an individual one about Ryan O'Reilly. And the one thing that I differ from a lot of people on my individual case to keep Jesperi Kotkaniemi long-term and let him be the third line center, because I think that he will flourish in that role. And then we don't have to worry about going to find someone to fill that role, because Jordo's not going to play forever.
No, he's not. I do agree with that.
Yeah, that's why I think KK would be good for that. Like, I understand that he skates like a newborn giraffe sometimes, but like overall, I think the kid's a good player. Like his edge work is not the best by any means, but he's got more things he does good than bad. And I feel like he's been significantly better this season than last season. And I'm not just talking about in terms of points. I think he's been better. I know that you were a big proponent of buying him out and moving on from him to free that money up. Thank God Kuzi went back to Russia, dude. Otherwise, I don't know what we would have done. Like,
oh, I know
that cap situation was not good.
No, so I mean, kind of thank you to Kuzi, I guess, for going to Russia. But I mean, do I think KK's played probably a little bit better this season? I think if you look at it in terms of the eye test, then yeah, maybe. Statistically, though, like with the points and all that type of stuff, leaves a little bit to be desired. So
Mhm.
I'm still a proponent of buying him out, but I know you have your objections to that.
Yeah, and it's not just a me liking KK thing. It's just I am haunted by the Alexander Simmons buyout. That that like hamstrung us from being able to do anything for years. And as far as like if I could have prime Alexander Simmons or prime Jesperi Kotkaniemi, I'm taking Kotkaniemi because Alexander Simmons was even a lacy player in Washington. It's just like it got covered up by how offensively potent those teams were because you're talking prime Backstrom, prime Ovechkin, so on and so forth. So
He was
like,
playing on a great line with Backstrom and Ovechkin too.
yeah, and that masked how not high effort of a player and how incomplete his game really was. Because when they brought him in the first time on the 1 year deal, I'm like, we're gonna regret that. And then they signed him long term, and I was like, oh shit, that's not good. Because I was overseas when that happened, and I was like, oh fuck, oh no, this is not good. My dad sent me an email about it, and I'm like.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, even then, though, even though we bought him out, that's still more than what we'll be paying for KK.
Yeah, that's
If you
true.
look
But
at the
like a lot
buyout,
more.
that's the yeah,
Because we signed
like
him to
it's
what, $6 million a year?
yeah, 6 million something a year, and I think it
Yeah,
was like wasn't it like I can't remember. I think it was 1 to 2 million where we had to buy him out for the rest of his contract. But with KK, it's like less than $500,000.
yeah.
And if it was
Actually, I'll
more
tell you
than
what.
that, if it's
No,
more
go ahead.
than that, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm actually pulling it up. You know how Puckpedia has a little buyout tool?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I want to pull that up just to see exactly what it is because I know you're right. I just want to see it.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. You don't buy a player out if they're going to actually hurt you hugely financially, in my opinion. Now, you talk to Bill Guerin from Minnesota, he's going to have a totally different opinion with those buyouts from Parise and Sutter.
That is true. All right. So if you do buy out Jesperi Kotkaniemi, the cap hit varies from year to year. Now, if you did it this next summer, you also have to consider he has his 10-team no trade clause kicking in next year. So if you're going to do it, this summer is the one to do it. So the annual buyout cost, the annual cap hit for the first season, 26-27, would be $850,833. So less than what an ELC will be in a few years. Then in 27-28, it is $470,833. It is that same number for 2029 and 2030. Then in the 2030-31 season, by then the cap will have gone up like $16 million, if not more, probably. $850,833. And it is that way until the end of the buyout, which would, or his contract coming off the books, which would be 2033, 34. So savings per year, here's where you do have an argument. 3,969,167 for the first one. 4,349,167 for the second, and it is that way up until the back end of it from 2031 to 2034. It is only $850,833 of savings, but you've already made that money up in spades if you do it. You definitely have a case. My thing is that what he's making right now, and I'll get the exact number of it because I know it's 4 point something. All right, 4.820. Yeah, that's a pretty heavy cap hit. That's going to be the going rate for a third line center in a couple of seasons.
Yeah, it could be. But I think if we're talking about third line centers, I think there's going to have to be that comparison of who would you rather have as your third line center, KK or Jack Drury? And I think there's an argument to be made for both. I mean, Sam and I, we were sitting very low level last night during the game, and one of the, Drury, I think he is a very smart player. To me, it's his smartness that really catch my eye, and his face-offs. Like I remember toward the end of that game, he was winning, or I think it was on the power play. I think it was one of the power plays where Drury won like 3 or 4 face-offs in a row. And I'm just like, man, this guy is good at face-offs. So I'm not saying KK is bad. It's just Drury is really good at face-offs. In fact, I should probably bring up that stat if I'm talking about it.
Actually, I can go ahead and do that for you right now. And are you talking about like overall or just last night?
Overall.
Okay. Because I know he's above 50 because I just looked at it the other day. Yeah, no, I got no complaints about Jack Drury as a player. It's just I think the Hurricanes need to spend a little more money on their center depth and prioritize that a little bit over other things just because of how much of an emphasis they put on the defense first system. So it's like I would rather than prioritize that. That's just me personally on that regard. Let's see. His
58.
Jesus, 58.4.
Yeah. And look at KK's.
That's a career high for him at 56.4. 56.4 is his career total, and this total for this season is 58.4. So he's gone even better in that direction. No wonder Brindamore likes him so much. Let's see. And then you said look at KK's next.
49%, I believe.
Yeah, 49.8. But honestly, that's not that bad.
Yeah, that's not that bad. It's just, again, it's not bad. It's just look at how good Drury is in the face-off circle.
Yeah. See, like,
and I think you could
go ahead.
I think you can save more money with Drury than with KK. That's just me, though.
You would. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, see, that's a tough call because getting a fourth line center in is not the most difficult thing to do. Like, that's a pretty easy position to replace. Like, when Drury was out, you called up Yost, and he did fine there. If like, Jack Drury got traded or something, Yost could do that. If he's healthy, he could be the fourth line center easily. We still haven't got to look at Suzuki yet, but I think
Yaska can play center.
Yaska played center when in Florida when me and Sam were there, and I thought he did really well. He got cleaned out once, but that happens to everybody.
Yeah,
everyone gets leveled when they first get to the league. It happens to everybody at least once. That's how you learn. But yeah, so we'll get to the comments here, and then we'll talk about some of the other topics, because I know as far as potentially trading for somebody, KK's on probably the top 3 or 4 on that list of who you would move to bring someone in, partially because of the cap hit that he has.
I could see Rozovic being traded, to be honest.
I think we need to consider that because, like, okay, so Svech has term. KK has term. And now let me make it abundantly clear, I'm not on board with trading Svechnikov. And I'm not on board with trading KK. Natchez, I'm 50-50 on it. Primarily,
it depends on the return.
It depends on the return. And the other reason why I'm kind of like, okay, if I could prioritize, I'll do the comments first and then I'll talk about it. Trust me, I've been thinking about this.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're on here because it's a lot easier for me to talk about stuff like this when I'm not by myself. You would have been like laughing though earlier if you saw what happened at the beginning. Go back at the beginning, like when I first started before I brought Sam Driscoll on. Frank suddenly decided he had to go to the bathroom. His way of telling me that, he grabs a shoe and starts running back and forth with it. He's a nutcase. Thayer Crafts, what's up, buddy? Let's go. I'm hyped. Long time no see. Glad to be back for live. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing this more now. I just had some other stuff I had to catch up on because, full-time job and everything. Ooh, Chick-fil-A. Thayer Craft, missed you, man. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Rough not having any content. Yeah, especially whenever I'm not around, Caniac Sessions, Caniac Report, like those guys, they got you. They do all kinds of cool stuff as well. The last few times that I've listened to you guys, I haven't been able to watch. I've just had to listen to it on the drive in to work and everything. That's why
we have it there too.
Yeah, that's what I need to start doing too. But yeah, these guys, I listen to them like whenever they record something. They're usually either my commute there or commute back. Just depends on how everything lines up when I get to listen to them. But they'll give you good content too. And also, I post a lot on X. I actually kind of spend more time there than I do on YouTube now because YouTube kind of sucks, honestly. Like it's so hard to get in the algorithm. And that's part of the reason that like I'm changing up how I do some of the stuff that I do, because one, the NHL is kind of douchey about their footage and they wonder why the game is not growing at a much faster rate when it seems like it would be an interesting thing to a generation with a low attention span because of how fast it is and how many things are going on at once. And it rewards clickbaity titles and misleading thumbnails and all that type of stuff. And I don't do that, and I'm not going to. So if on X, I post stuff during the game and everything. So if you have an account over there, that's a good place to like follow me if you don't already. Same thing goes for these guys. They're on X too. So is Caniac Sessions. Yeah, especially when we're playing terribly. No, don't worry. Caniac Sessions and Caniac Reporter guys that will also highlight if the team is playing terribly. But we don't sit here and go like, oh, everything's fine when it's not. Like we don't agree on everything, but when the team's playing like shit, we universally can agree on that very easily.
Yeah, that Buffalo game, I saw it coming too, even
awful.
before the first. I mean, I saw it. Yeah, I kind of did saw it coming too, just because there's no intensity until the third period, and you can't keep winning games when you only play the third period.
No, and it's like even as bad as they played, they still gave themselves a chance to win at the end. Dustin Wilkie, what's up, buddy? Eddie O, worst color guy in hockey, so biased. Yeah, I can't stand him. The one good thing about the Buffalo game is he wasn't on that broadcast. He was on the Minnesota and Edmonton or whichever one came on after that. I had already went to bed after that because after that Buffalo game, I was like, yeah, I'm done with hockey for a little bit. I don't want to watch another game after seeing what the Hurricanes, how bad they were in that one. Speaking of Caniac Session, what's up, brother? Good to see you, pal. Dustin Wilkie, Thunderbirds, Gargoyles. Okay, so I do want to start covering or doing more content in regards to stuff like that. I got to be honest, though, I don't really follow a team in the E except kind of for the Norfolk Admirals because I used to live there, and when I was in the Navy, I was stationed there, and I went to games sometimes, but that's back when they were in the American League, and I really only went to games when the Checkers were in town. So that building kind of hated me, and oh yeah, no, that I did not make a ton of friends in there. I'll just be straight up honest with you. But that was also like when I was 23, so I wasn't the easiest person to get along with then. The Gargoyles, I'm gonna wait and see who they end up getting affiliated with, which I imagine it's Florida, since it's the same ownership group. I guess that's what they're gonna do. I don't know. The Thunderbirds, I don't know much about the FPHL, and I've sat down and watched a little bit of FPHL hockey. I think the SPHL is a immensely superior product, even though they're both considered single A minor league hockey. I think the SPHL is better. That's just me. If you took the champion of the FPHL and had them play against pretty much any team in the SPHL, they'd probably get destroyed. I really genuinely believe that. Coconut Kyle, what's up, dude? This league doesn't care. It's reactionary. Yeah. Alex Server says Florida tweakers are a different species. Yeah, they are. It wasn't so bad where, like, when I was in Pensacola, like, I love the Gulf Coast. I don't know if you've ever been there, but, like, the Panhandle and everything, it's inside of Florida, but it's basically Alabama with a beach. It really is. I didn't see a whole bunch of that stuff there.
So my sister lives in Pensacola, so I've been down there a couple of times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I liked it in that area. I really did. Me and my girlfriend, we really love Destin. That's like one of our favorite vacation spots.
Nice.
Alex Server also says Bridgestone Arena Nashville is the most fun away experience. I've had. Nice facility, and it is dead in the center of downtown. Yeah, I'm going to go there eventually, but I got to get my Gossa Spare sweater first because I'm going there with an agenda, obviously.
I'd love to take a Nashville trip. Just because there are so many things I want to do in Nashville. I want to see a Predators game. I know I love country music, so the Country
Oh,
Music
yeah.
Hall of Fame is down there, and music in general is big down there. And I'm also a bit of a Dave Ramsey fan, so
Oh, okay.
I can
Oh, that's
go
where he
to his
lives, isn't it?
studio. Yeah, it is. So
Okay.
I'm like, that'd be cool to go on a trip.
That's something we should just try to do next year if we can all line up for like the same day and just like go
Yeah.
to Nashville. You, me, Griff, the other Sam, and AB. We should, yeah, because I definitely want Nashville and Tampa are my 2 trips that I'm going to try and take next year.
Yeah, I will definitely be interested in going to Nashville. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I would love to go to Nashville. BG, what's up, dude? Hopping on to say what's up. Good to see you. Thayercraft, do you honestly see this core winning a cup without a top 10 goaltender this year? No.
No.
No, this year's not the year.
Yeah, and I had a huge ramble on our latest episode that came out yesterday. But do I think this team's a playoff team? Absolutely. But if they ever somehow find themselves below a playoff spot by a trade deadline, you sell. I'm sorry.
We've got so many expendable assets that we could sell if we wanted to. Orlov, Roslovic, Burns, maybe, even though he's got that
Burns, that's going
list.
to be tough. Yeah.
That's going to be hard to move him with a 3-team trade list. But go ahead.
But that was my passion coming out of that Buffalo loss, being like, you know what, freaking sell if you're not in the playoff spot, because if they're treating this like a transition year, which Adam Gold has hinted at in his podcast, then treat it, act like it, So that's my big thing.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely well, see, here's the thing with the whole transition year thing. I'm of the mindset that this is a transition year, an in-between year, or retool year, whatever you want to call it. That being said, we have a lot of money to spend in the offseason. That doesn't mean that people are going to agree to sign. We have to give them a reason. So it's like if we want to say, let's just say this is not going to happen. Let's say Mikko Rantanen does hit free agency. It's not going to happen, but let's just say theoretically he does. Or even someone a little bit more realistic, Nikolai Ehlers. Let's say he hits free agency. If you want to bring you want them to come to the team to begin with. You want to make this a desirable spot. One of the ways you do that is building a team that looks like, hey, they can win. If I sign with this team, they will get better and have a much better chance of winning. I have a good team around me to win. You make it a premier destination, as we have been for the last few seasons. So at least a good second round showing will make that happen. Additionally, if you want those guys to come in and maybe take a little bit of a pay cut so you can build an even better team, the deeper you go in the playoffs, the more likely they are to say, yeah, chop $500,000 off my AAV because I want to win. If you want a shot at bringing Mikko Rantanen in here for $13.5 million as opposed to 14, you need to have a good season. You need to go as far as you possibly can in the playoffs. That's why it's like when people are like, oh, it's a transition year, and kind of absolving the team, regardless of who they want to blame, whether they want to blame the players, Rod, whatever. It's a transition year. It's not a go suck year. We're not playing for draft picks. We're playing to be a free agent destination.
Yes, I think that's a better translation of a transition year. Still play good. I do agree there, because I think this is a playoff team. But it all depends where you're at the trade deadline. It really is. If you're in a playoff position, don't do a Gensel type of trade. Don't go for those big rentals like you did last year. But if you do a trade to where the player you're going to get, is an improvement over the player you're giving up, and second, make sure that player has term.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's funny, I noticed you were wearing your Teravainen Whalers. I actually thought about something, and I'd mentioned this on Caniac sessions before. I don't know if you remember me saying it. I have a feeling he's going to be back here. I just not this season, but like I could see Carolina loading up for a playoff run and telling Chicago, "Hey, here's a pick, retain 50%, and us bringing him back." I just have a feeling that's going to happen. I think if we'd had more cap space, we would have kept him. I really do.
Yes, but also from what I heard leaked out is that we didn't really badly want him, I guess is the term.
He wasn't high on the priority list, but I have a
No.
feeling that they're going to bring him back. I have nothing to back it up. It's just a feeling.
I had the same feeling with Nason, but that went away when we saw the rise of like Jackson Blake, Eric Robinson, and I'm just like, you know what? We probably don't need Nason because I think that can be filled with the hopefully with the extension of Eric Robinson.
Yeah,
that's to me the similar play.
Oh, that actually reminds me of something. Did you see that poll that I did about bringing him back?
Who, Nason?
No, Robinson, about extending him.
Oh, I think. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I actually want to read the results of that poll out because I actually just bookmarked it because I'm gonna do like individual videos about. I'm going to do individual videos about who I would want to trade, who I want to extend of the pending UFAs, all that type of stuff. So here were the options that I had in this poll in regards to potentially extending Eric Robinson. This was based on what Friedman said on that one episode of 32 Thoughts. The options were a Carrier-like deal, such as a $2 million by 6 year, which is personally what I would do. A $3 million deal by 2 years just for keeping the term down. Different AAV in term, so people could comment if they wanted to do something different, or let him walk. The let him walk result was only 3.3% of 209 votes. So this guy, like, the fans appreciate him, which I'm really happy about because he goes out there, does the little things well. He plays really hard every night. It's like he's like Martin Nook if he could score a little bit more, is the way that I look at Eric Robinson.
I think that's a good argument to be made too.
And then for other AAV in term, it was 22.5%. 3 million by 2 got 28.7%. And Carrier-like deal, a 2 million by 6 year, 45.5%. And my rationale that I wrote in here with it is, if I can get it to open, if possible, I personally would give him a similar contract to William Carrier, a $2 to $2.5 million cap hit with 4 to 6 years of term, cost-controlled forwards, pay dividends on the ice and within the salary cap for years to come if done correctly. To your point about potentially buying out Kokoniemi, something like this would ease the pain of that if you signed Robinson to a deal like that, because that's one less thing you have to worry about for a long time.
Yeah. I've always said that I think this team needs to be probably a little bit more proactive when it comes to extending players. Don't just wait till the offseason. That was one thing I actually liked about Ron Francis, because I remember him extending Teravainen in like during the middle of the season. I think it was like January. When Teravainen was on his
Rask too.
Did it with Rask too. Be proactive. Like don't just wait till the end of the season. You know? Like if you're wanting to get these good deals, you're going to have to be proactive. I think that's the statement that should ring in their ears the most.
That makes sense too, because it's like we were just talking about how we still needed to play good this year to be a free agent destination. And if we go ahead and get guys locked up now, then that makes it even more enticing. You're like, okay, this team only needs 1 or 2 pieces. And then when they reach out to try and sign players and everything, they're like, all right, this front office has their stuff together. I'm going there. Now, not to compare it to a Gensel type of trade, but let's say theoretically you do go get someone like Mikko Rantanen or someone who's not as coveted as Nikolai Ehlers, even though I don't think either one of those guys are moving or leaving. Sign them immediately, like whether it's a sign and trade or have something in place to get them signed shortly after they get traded for. Otherwise, you lose assets for nothing, and then it would be more consequential now than it was when the Gensel thing happened.
Yes, and if that happens like twice in a row, first Gensel and let's say we get Rantanen, then I will have questions about the ownership of Tom Dundon, not just Eratolsky, but Tom Dundon himself.
Yeah, because the final signature ultimately comes down to Dundon, not Tulsky. Now, speaking of that, we'll segue into, we got one more comment here. Theracraft says, I don't mean that in a rude way. Haha, just curious about your honest opinion in regards to the top 10 goalie thing. I'm not sure what the goalie situation holds. I'm really not. Kochekov, here's what's annoying about Kochekov. There's some nights where you're like, okay, he's not it. Then he has games like he had yesterday. Noticeably more controlled. Didn't go for a poke check on a penalty shot, for example, because he was just sitting there thinking about it the entire time. Very animated. Makes highlight reel saves or lets in softies. But then he has games like last night where he was consistent. That's the thing that sucks about it. Is he's like right there in that in between. We don't know that he's not it, but we don't know that he is it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season we get to the point to where, okay, where is he at?
Yeah.
Is he a starter
goalie.
or is he at worst a 1A type of goalie? And I would say if he's even a 1A goalie, good, because I think when it comes to an 82 game, possibly 84 game schedule, you need more of a tandem than a full-on starter, in my opinion.
I agree. And another reason why I think the Hurricanes should go for a tandem, they prioritize depth over star power. The way we construct our roster versus, say, Edmonton, for example, that dumps a ton of money into Draisaitl and is going to dump a ton of money again into McDavid next season. Or when they extend him, I should say. I think that like the Hurricanes have a philosophy of building the entire roster, prioritizing depth and everything like that. I think they should take that mentality to goaltending as well. That's like if our tandem is, say, Kirill Vejmelka and Pyotr Kochekov. Strong 1A, 1B. Who's getting more starts? Yeah, it's like who's getting more starts? Well, who's playing better right now? What does the schedule dictate? Because another reason we need another goalie. The season this year, you notice how condensed and how tightly packed it is for everybody because of the Four Nations face-off. Same problem is going to happen next year because of the Olympics. Everybody needs to prioritize goaltending depth, but we really need to do it not just for this season and next, but like into the future. It's how they build the rest of the team. Might as well do that between the pipes.
Yes, exactly. And I would also argue when it comes to the depth, I think the most important positions are the back ends, meaning defense and goaltending. And why I say defense is, I mean, we saw Ty Smith. I don't think he should be a seventh defenseman. He just shouldn't. So they need to work on the depth on the defensive end and the goaltending. And I think forwards, you're probably okay. I don't think we have a depth concern amongst the forwards. It's a star concern amongst the forwards.
I agree. Yeah, the depth is actually really good there. And that's even if you're not just talking about who we have on the roster now, but as far as like prospects and everything and call-ups and everything like that, we're good there. But it's also like we have to ask this question. If our top six really has, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, it's just we build our forward group differently than everyone else. But let's say our best six forwards. Is Roslovic one of those guys? Is Kokniemi one of those guys? And I say that as a big KK fan, and I like Roslovic as well. But when you look at like a contending team, and when I say they're top six forwards, I mean their six best forwards, not necessarily the first and second line. When I look at that, I don't see a contender or a competitive team in regards to having those two guys being half the top 50% of your best forwards or in the top 50% of your best forwards. That's where I'm like, that's where we're lacking, like you're saying, the extra star power, the extra, what you need there. And then Nate just like, he has that ability and everything. He really does. I know I went into detail on why I think, Nate just has some of the issues that he's had here. I just kind of feel like the reins need to come off of him a little bit more because when he's playing loose, he's playing confident. He's playing fast. He's scoring a lot more.
Is that on him or is that on Brindamore? That's the question.
I pissed people off about this when I wrote that long post I did, but I'm sticking by it. That is on Brindamore. To a lesser degree, it affects Svechnikov. Now, it's like, okay, for example, Aho, a lot of people expect him or wish that he was in the same company as far as the skill set and what someone brings to the table of the McDavids, Matthews, and McKinnons of the world. That's not what he is, and he never was. He's more like Kopitar, Bergeron, Barkov, Backstrom. That's more what he is. Now, that's not of detriment to him, and that's not saying that he's as good as any of those guys, because I'm waiting on Bruins comments or Bruins fans to flood the comments. How dare you compare him to Bergeron? I'm not saying that he is as good as him. I'm just saying, like, when you're talking skill sets, Aho is more of that type of player, and you need those type of players to win. Everybody I just mentioned has a Stanley Cup there, except for Kopitar. He has 2.
Yeah,
and
true.
You know what else all those guys have in common?
Mm-hmm.
None of them had a 100-point season, except for Backstrom had 1.
Probably because he's playing with Ovechkin, who is considered the best goal scorer of this generation.
Yes.
Which to me, I would argue, I think that's a good sample just of how to construct players to play around Aho. I think Jarvis has good chemistry with Aho. But if you look at like last year, if you remember, it wasn't Jarvis that shined with Aho, it was Gensel that shined with Aho the most. And I would say if they need to get another forward, get a forward that that can play with Aho so well.
That's why I think Rantanen would, like, if we oversold a little bit to get somebody, that would work.
I think it would work too.
What about Ehlers? Ehlers, I think, would go good with Aho too. It wouldn't be as great as Rantanen, but it would still be good, and it wouldn't cost nearly as much money as Rantanen is going to cost.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Ehlers and Aho, I think that'd be a great combo as well. It's just right now you look at this roster, we only have 4 big forwards, and when you just have one line of like star potential, you're not gonna. I just don't think you go far in the playoffs. So they need to get like at least a 5th guy.
Mm-hmm. So that actually reminds me. So we'll go into detail on each of these. Now, this is not accounting for money or what we would have to give up, because, like I said, Tage not happening, Larkin not happening, Tuck maybe, Cousins realistic, Ryan O'Reilly very realistic in my opinion. So here's my rationale with each of these players, and if you want to throw anybody else in here, be my guest. Tage Thompson, size, right-handed shot, very good defensively, uses his frame well, works tight around the net, wins a lot of faceoffs, very much a power forward. He's kind of like today's Eric Stahl in a lot of ways, in my opinion. He really is. I see a lot of similarities in those in their game. Tage is a little bit more of he's got the hands a little bit more, but he can also use his frame to protect the puck. He goes to the dirty areas, does the hard work. Larkin, speed demon, great playmaker, good defensively, but more than anything, he's got wheels. And above all, he doesn't have wheels in the regards of, hey, let me catch up to this guy. He knows what to do when he gets there. He knows how to use the speed game, but not overskate pucks and not go offside, and still find open ice, all that type of stuff. Tuck, I think that's a guy you could consider putting with Aho and producing. Cousins.
Yeah.
2C problem. Yeah. Cousins, 2C problem solved. The biggest reason why I think Ryan O'Reilly is the most realistic target on this, he's got 3 years left on his contract. He's won a Selke. He's very defensively responsible. He's got a lot of experience. The best part about it is that bridges the gap between now and when Felix Unger-Sorm is ready, if they're grooming him to be the second line center, or if they trade for one later down the line or draft another guy and develop him, that contract expires at the perfect time. All these other guys have term. You're committing to taking on a lot if you get anybody else from there. I want to know what you think among those guys or anybody else you could mention. If you could have any of them, who do you want and why?
I'm interested in Dylan Cousins just because I'd like to have someone, if we're going to trade assets, I'd like to have someone that we're going to keep for some time. And I think he'd be good. And I mean, Unger-Sorm, while we're training him to be a center, he's naturally a winger. So So I would say if you have to trade someone, and I talked about this a little bit with like the whole thing of trying to get maybe a guy like Elias Pettersson. I wouldn't be disappointed if they traded Netches for Cousins, just because if you look at our prospect pool, our strength is on the wing. Bradley Nadeau, Felix Ungersorum, Jackson Blake is still young. Jarvis is still young. Like, you have lots of potential on the wing. It's just the center core is weak. So I think that's where maybe I think the focus should be, but there's also should be the focus of having someone play with Aho. It's a tough position. I think the Hurricanes are in with that.
Yeah.
And I think another player that they could, I would love to see them get Robert Thomas from St. Louis.
Dude, I just don't think they'll give him up.
I know
That's
they're
the only
not, but that's
thing.
like my dream.
Oh.
That's my dream player.
Like I've got the Tajan Larkin, you've got Robert Thomas. Well, you know
Yeah, I have
what? I could see
Thomas.
Robert Thomas. I could see Robert Thomas happening before Tage or Larkin.
Yeah, maybe. St. Louis is still fighting for a playoff spot, though, so I don't know if they'd be willing to trade him.
Yeah, but he would be a great fit. But yeah, I definitely like agree with all your rationale on Cousins, because this was another thing. Imagine this. Okay, so first off, one of the big problems I think Svechnikov has, I don't like him playing left wing. I think he should be on the right. It's easier. Okay, so that goal that he got the other night, where he came out of the corner on the forehand and scored, he can do stuff like that and play that power forward game, cut to the middle of the ice and have a better picture of the net and get cleaner looks at the net and score more if he's playing his offhand. He has always been better on his right side. I don't think Aho and Svechnikov have chemistry. If you do put them back together, put Svechnikov on the right wing and see how he does there and leave it for a little while and, let him acclimate and everything. However, imagine this. Dylan Cousins, Andrei Svechnikov on the right wing, Eric Robinson, who has shown he can play up the lineup and be effective on the left. That's a lot of size. That's a lot of speed. That's a lot of physicality.
Yeah, I completely agree. But in all reality, I just don't think the Hurricanes are going to make any trades at the trade deadline. So again, I'm dreaming more than a reality.
Yeah, I think Cousins is realistic, though, man. I really do. And like you said, Felix Ungersorum is a natural winger. You can groom him to play center, but he doesn't have to.
No, he doesn't.
So it's like when you do bring him up eventually, which I imagine there's a very good possibility he makes the jump next year, because it was hard to send him back down this last time.
Him and Nadeau, I think could make that chance.
Ooh, boy,
I'm more hype on Nadeau just because we need the goal scoring.
Yeah, and that kid's got an absolute cannon. I remember someone in the comments one time compared him to DeBrincat, and I'm like, that's actually a really good comparison. But yeah, no, it's like if we could somehow trade. So me and AB were actually doing something the other night where we were on a live and we were playing around with like the Puckpedia like trade tool and everything. There's not a whole lot of monetary difference if you did send Nate just out to bring Cousins back. It's like that's totally doable as well. It's just they've got options to make this team better now and not hamstring everything in the future. I wish they would do a little bit of something.
They do. Yeah, I do too. And I mean, I can't find where it came from, but I did see that the Hurricanes are seeking a forward, and I can see now why they're seeking a forward, especially with the return of Freddie Anderson. So we'll see if it happens. I have my doubts just because I think they view this more as a transition year than a proactive year of trying to be better for next season. But
speaking of goaltending, the aircraft says when he's calm, he's referring to Kochekov. He's a top 15 goaltender, which makes him so frustrating. He's amazing or terrible. No in between. That lack of stability hurts the entire team, in my opinion. Yes. Now, that's one thing that I would bring up, though, in regards to that. When we're talking about getting a forward, like you were just saying, if Darcy Kempfer won a Stanley Cup, it's not a far-fetched idea to think Pyotr Kochekov could win one. I'm not saying they have similar goaltending styles, but I'm talking about like how impactful they can be on a game or on a series on an individual level if they have a good enough team in front of them. If Darcy Kempfer could win a cup, granted he had McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, et cetera, in front of him, but we could have a team like that in front of Kochekov, and he could let in a soft goal here and there, and they could still get to the end.
Yeah, I think there's a good point to be made there. Heck, he might win a Stanley Cup again with LA. That trade's working out for both Washington and LA. Dubois playing great in Washington, but
Carberry's a good coach. I hate the Caps,
he,
but I have to admit Carberry is a very good coach.
oh, he is. I'm very impressed with him just revitalizing that Caps team, but I don't like the Capitals. But but
I mean, it quacks like a duck, though, man. Like, they had a good offseason, and their coach did really good. And, that's another thing. Like, you can tell that the man-on-man defense can work because Washington does it, too, just like Carolina does. It's almost identical.
yeah, and who knows? Maybe you just need a good defense to win a Stanley Cup. I think there's good argument to be made if you look at the current trends of the NHL. Goal scoring is kind of a bit of on a decline. So I saw that stat. So that's interesting. But do I think that their Hurricanes win a Stanley Cup? No, but if they can win the first round this year in the playoffs, and obviously they make the playoffs, I consider this season a mild success. I just would.
Anything past a late second round exit is a bonus. I would like for them to at least put up a fight in the second round. But, it's also like we've been saying here, this team's one or two trades away from actually being like, maybe not a top contender, but like you look at the team and go, okay, there's not a 0% possibility that this team wins a Stanley Cup, but it's a lot higher than that. Are they going to compete with the very best teams? Probably not, but it's not out of the question. I mean, hell, the 06 team, that team wasn't supposed to win a Stanley Cup.
No. In fact, what's funny, there was a documentary on YouTube on the Hurricanes during that run, and quite a few players said, the Hurricanes were bound to be one of the worst teams in the Southeast Division?
The Southeast Division, yeah.
And in that season, they come out winning the Stanley Cup, man. I love being an underdog. That's one thing I do like.
Yeah, because when there's expectations, that gets like the last couple of years, I'm like, I don't like having expectations, but I also haven't been particularly fond with how the team has played lately. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, my number one out of all these, out of the realistic targets, would be Cousins, and I would love to see him play with like Svechnikov and Robinson. I think that would be a good line. I really do. Then we just
and who knows? They might get Pettersson. Never know.
See, I'm not big on getting Pettersson. I'm just not. More than anything, it's like, okay, so he has a $11.6 million cap hit, and he's only got one 100-point season, which he will not replicate with the Hurricanes. Anybody you bring in here, their offense will go down because of the way that the Canes play. So it's like, and that's nothing against them. I just think that that's part of the system. I really do.
I agree.
That's why I would rather go get someone like Cousins, because you wouldn't see a massive change in his production here, and he would still improve the team a lot. And another little bit of a deficiency we have, not a big one, our second power play unit is kind of light.
It is, but it's funny. Last night's game, I thought the second power play unit was better than our first.
Oh, yes. No, absolutely. Last night it was. I'm just talking about in the grand scheme of things. It's like a lot of teams that win cups, you look at their first unit and you're like, wow, that's scary. Then you look at their second unit and you're like, okay, that's slightly less scary, but it's still very scary. It's like, whereas with the Hurricanes, it's like the meme of where the dog is standing next to the werewolf statue. It's typically the first unit is the werewolf statue, and the dog is like the dog is the second power play unit. And then now it's like last night was opposite, though. The second power play unit was significantly better last night. That's why I'm glad after they went, what was it, 0 for 2 or 0 for 3, the second unit started the next power play or whatever it was, because they were better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really were. I'm kind of comparing Dylan Cousins and Elias Pettersson. I have noticed Cousins is a little bit more fit, like a bigger guy than Pettersson is. Pettersson's a slim dude. So I think that's a good argument to be made if you want Cousins over Pettersson. because you need size in the top 6. You just
Yeah,
do.
and we're
And I know
lacking that.
Svetch and Svetch can bring that in KK when he's in the top 6, but you need that agitator. And am I saying that Cousins is? Here's the thing: I haven't seen Cousins play a whole lot, but if he can be that agitator, a little bit kind of like what Trotrek was, then he'd be an even better fit.
Yes. I think he's got a little bit of that to his game, not as much as Trocheck does, but I love the idea of our center depth being Aho, Cousins, whoever you want to put at third, whether that's Jordo or KK, and whoever you want to put at fourth, like Jack Jury. But it's like, I imagine for a deal like that to happen, KK has to go the other way, maybe, if it's not Natchez. I don't see anybody actually trading for him. It's kind of a cheaper to keep him type of situation in that, or if he really falls off a cliff between now and the end of the season, then I think you really have to consider buying him out, considering it gets harder to trade him because his 10-team NTC kicks in. So that's the hang up with that.
Well, I still think they should buy him out anyways, but that's just me.
I hope he'll still get better. No, I understand. He's just not your type of player. It's like, see, you're at least kind of respectful about it. Whereas if someone mentions Noah Hannafin around me, I start foaming at the mouth. I really, really hated him. The best thing he ever did for the Hurricanes was when he scored last night.
Yes, exactly. That was so funny to get Blake that goal.
Dude, I was dying laughing.
Yeah, that was priceless, because one thing when Hannafin was on this team, you can tell, I just thought he just felt like entitled to everything. And I'm just like, yeah, there's a top 2 defenseman there when we drafted him. Now, I think right now he's at his peak, obviously, but I still think he's a good top 4 defenseman. But yeah, I'm not the biggest Hannafin fan. Heck, two former Hurricanes that are on defense that I probably don't hate are Hannafin and Adam Fox. So I'd rather have Hannafin, honestly. Actually, I hate Adam Fox more than I do Noah Hannafin.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's like another thing I noticed about Adam Fox, for as good as he is, his skating is like not as like good as a lot of other defensemen that he's comparable to. Like, I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's like, sorry, sparkling water. So it's like, I'm not saying his skating is bad, but when you think about people who are elite skaters, okay, for example, Makar, I would classify him as an elite skater. Or let's say compare Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini, to take it outside of, the Hurricanes and everything. Connor Bedard, for as great of a player as he is, his skating is great, but it's not elite. Macklin Celebrini's skating is elite. It's like he could just not score for 3 or 4 games, and he's still valuable to you. Connor Bedard, on the other hand, if he's not producing, he's not helping.
Well, the big thing with Bedard isn't his skating; it's his shot.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
It's definitely the big thing with him. It's just like, I feel like that's what separates him from being the player he actually is from the player a lot of people think that he's going to be. I know that that's an unpopular opinion on my part. He's definitely like going to be a top 20 player in the league. Like, I'm not doubting that. I just don't think that the McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon company type of discussion was really warranted. I just never saw it. I could be wrong, because like everyone thought Jack Hughes was a bust, and now, I hate to say this, he's one of the best players in the league now. But I just don't see that with Bedard. I just don't. It's like, it's nothing personal against the kid. I just don't see that. That's just me. I'm not saying that he's not a great player, but like when the NHL Network ranked him as the 44th best player in the league, I'm like, he's had 1 season. And honestly, I don't think he should have won the Calder. I thought Brock Faber should have.
Oh, I love Brock Faber.
Brock Faber is amazing.
Still, my favorite player on Minnesota is Matthew Boldy.
Yeah, I like Matt Boldy. Oh, okay. So actually, here's something funny. Brock Faber, Jacob Slavin on Team USA. Would you make them a pair? because I don't think
Yes.
that pair would ever get scored on.
Yes, I'd make that a pair. That'd be exceptional.
Yeah, that's who I'd like to. Actually, I'm going to make a poll about that now. That's a good idea because the three right-handed defensemen on that team are Faber, Fox, and McAvoy.
Yeah,
I think.
that's a. I mean, I'd love to see Faber and Slavin paired together. You know who also I think is a good defenseman? He's playing with LA, and that's Mikey Anderson.
Mikey Anderson is like Jacob Slavin light. He's so good at the shutdown game. Like as far as like shutdown defensemen go, let's see. Or actually, hold up. Let me go back to what I was originally looking at here.
Gustav Forsling is kind of like that for Florida.
Yeah, like Forsling, I'm glad his career panned out and he turned out to be really good and everything. But it's like when people say he's better than Slavin, I'm like, stop. No, he's good, but he ain't that damn good. No, Adam Fox, not what does the Fox say? Stupid. I don't know how I did that. Okay, so yeah, so the three right-handed defensemen on that team are in fact Adam Fox, Brock Faber, and Charlie McAvoy. I would like to see Slavin with Faber. That's just me.
Oh, I would too. I'd love that. You know what you should search up now, Brandon, is what did Adam Fox say?
Oh God, is that a thing? Hold up, let me see.
I don't know.
I'm about to find out.
You said
what did Adam Fox study at Harvard? Hockey. He didn't go to class.
No.
Okay, luckily nothing is coming up like on YouTube or anything, so nobody's made a song out of it or nothing. So I could
see someone in the Weird Al portion of
songs. The funny music makers.
Yeah. I could see that. That'd be funny, I think.
I absolutely could. But I currently have no other topics, I don't believe. Do you have anything else you would like to discuss, good sir?
But we talked to goaltending. We talked defense with Ty Smith. I believe we talked about everything. I mean, we only talked a little bit about Roslovic, didn't we? Or we talked
a little bit about Roslovic.
Yeah. I'm just
because I mean, we might as honestly, dude. I'm kind of thinking we should trade Roslovic anyway because he scores enough to where he's going to get priced out from staying anyway. And I just don't see where we have room for him if we've got Nadeau coming up anyway, another right-handed shot that's expected to score goals. Like, I think we consider just if we're in a good spot, keep him, let him walk. But he's definitely one of those guys. I think we could trade him, and it wouldn't hurt us at all, even if we were still in a playoff spot when we did it.
Yeah, I agree too. I think that's pretty much it. I know we didn't. I mean, there are a couple of players like Walker and Gostisbehere we didn't talk a ton about.
Walker, I think is.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I insist.
Walker. I think Walker's a player that's going to stay here throughout his whole 5-year term. I just wonder about Ghost, though. I wonder.
Don't do that to me.
I know. The reason why I wondered that is because if the biggest thing, we know how good Nikishin's going to be, but if Morrow plays very good, it's just one of those things where we're able to keep Ghost, Nikishin, and Morrow all under the cap. It's more of a future type of thing, like several years down the road. But
I mean, Ghost is only on a 3-year deal, and by the time he is, it's like Sean Walker. Like, I knew he was a good signing, but like, it's even better than I thought it was going to be. That guy is remarkable. Like, I know a lot of people had concerns about the defensive side of his game. I have none.
He had that one stretch with Ghost where they were just letting the other team score goals in bunches, but then they sealed it up. So
yeah, I think they just kind of had to learn each other. And it's like that's another thing. Like, people like think that Ghost is that bad defensively, and I'm like, All right, I'm trying to come up with a way to argue against the whole offensive defenseman argument, because a lot of people look at a defenseman with a lot of points and they automatically assume, oh, he's a traffic cone in like so many different situations. The way I look at it, when you drive every day, when you go to work, yeah, everybody around you sucks at driving. You're better at it than everyone else. That's what I tell myself anyway. But it's like, if people were really that bad at driving, you would never make it to work. You would be involved in multiple accidents a day.
Yeah.
That's my argument with the whole offensive defenseman thing. They look at a defenseman who scores a lot and they automatically think that they're not good at defense. Like a lot of people who criticize Tony DeAngelo's defense, they can't even point out the things that he did wrong. Tony was not bad in regards of like where his defense lacked was in his gap control. It wasn't him turning the puck over when he had it. Once he had the puck, he was gone. But defending off the rush and having a good gap, which Slavin is excellent at that, that's where Tony had problems defensively at. But people couldn't even point out the specifics of where he was having issues. So, and it surprises me his gap control isn't better because of how well he skates. He's one of the best skaters that this team has had in this era. That's what surprises me about it. And that's one of the things, like, I remember posting a video, like I did a bunch of clips of like Gostisbehere making really good defensive plays off the rush. And people are like, oh, but he's minus whatever. And I'm like, I just showed you video evidence this guy makes relatively good plays defensively. Is he as good at it as Slavin or Chatfield? No, but still good at it.
Now, granted, I think the plus minus stat can be a little deceiving, to be honest.
Me too. I hate that stat more and more.
I'm not the biggest fan of that stat, but I think I would say it's a small indicator. That's why I'm not a big fan of that stat, because there are other stats that are more important than the plus and minus thing. So,
Well, see, one of the things that annoys me about plus minus, I think that if they wanted it to be more accurate, they should only record it at even strength. And it's like, okay, for example, if you score on the power play, you don't get a plus, but the other team gets a minus. If you make a bad change and you're not on the ice and the other team scores, you don't get a minus, but the guys who were out there trying to clean up your mess did. If you take a penalty, you're in the box, and the other team scores, you don't get a minus. That's the thing about it. It's like, that's one of the many reasons why it's deceptive, and there's people who take up for that stat constantly, and I'm kind of like, if they want it to be a little bit more accurate, they probably need to change the criteria by which they record it. Same thing goes for hits, blocks, takeaways, and giveaways. Those are very loosely defined, and that's part of the reason you have a hard time quantifying defense.
Yeah, and another thing too, the plus minus, this is my biggest thing, is that I think you need to rely more on the eye test than the plus minus, because heck, the other team scores a goal and you're doing your job of covering up your man. That's not your fault. Why should you receive a minus if you're doing your job of covering up your man and not letting him get a shot?
And that's the other.
But
that's
you
the other
get,
thing
you get minus anyways.
That's the other thing that sucks about defense, though. It's like it's so hard to quantify even with the eye test, because like you could see multiple, like, okay, like you and I or whoever else, we could look at a particular goal happen. You might blame one person, I might blame another. It's like that's the other thing that sucks about it. It's like the other thing is I'm trying to think of what else.
It leads to interpretation if you think too much on the eye test. I think.
Yes, that's true. Another thing I would like to see them do, how they record, how they quantify penalty kill and power play statistics, the whole percentage of 100 and everything like that.
Yep.
I wish they did that with the players on an individual level.
Yeah, I do too.
That Dauber's Frozen Tools actually does that. And I think that that's the way the league should record it, because I think that that's a little bit more accurate reflection of what that player brings to the table in special team situations. Like, for example, the guy who keeps the puck in on the power play, Gostisbehere does that a lot. It's like it might go to two guys before it goes in the net and he doesn't get an assist, but he still did a pinch, made a good pass, and it eventually resulted in the puck going in the net. It's like I wish they quantified it that way a little bit more, because there's ways to make this stuff more accurate. And I think that would actually help out. I think that would actually help grow the game more than anything, because there's a lot of times where it's like people ask me, hey, what does a takeaway mean? What does a giveaway mean? Was that a hit? And I'm like, well, it depends. Ask the arena staff that's working that night because they all record that stuff differently. The one thing it seems like is kind of recorded across the board pretty well is blocks. That's the only one that it seems like there's relatively similar criteria for everybody.
Because you have Corsi and the Fenwick stats, which I actually do kind of like those stats, but
I've become a really big expected goals guy. The reason I like that one is because it quantifies chance quality. Because
that's good too. I like that.
Yeah, XG is my favorite one. That's the one that I like to cite the most. Corsi and Fenwick, I personally don't think that those should be counted in anything other than 5-on-5 or even strength in general. Because it's like if you don't have like a really high Corsi percentage on a power play, like what are you doing? That definitely shouldn't be negative in that situation. Fenwick, a little bit better as far as accounting for chance quality because it accounts for did the shot get through, which is important. Like I don't hate the advanced stats. I actually like a lot of stuff about it. It's just some people like some of these stats guys, like that dude that got into it with Tony a few weeks ago, the Dom Licka, whatever his name is. Some of these stats guys try to make themselves of equal importance to the players. That will never happen.
No. Yeah. But, I mean, if you look at the NHL, it's slowly going to an analytics type of... It's slow, but it's getting there when it comes to being analytics. You know, who started that was Steve Yzerman with Tampa.
Yeah. And if you really go back, it was baseball that really kicked off the whole advanced stats thing, the Moneyball thing. And well, see, it's like I understand the advanced stats in baseball a little bit more, or I don't understand them as well as I understand the hockey ones. I understand their utilization a little bit better. Reason being because in baseball, there is one action, one event, one result. Definitive. That's that. Hockey's played in a pinball machine, basically. It does not work that way.
But that's what I love about hockey. It's so unpredictable.
Me too.
I love it.
That's another thing I love about it too. But yeah, so it's that's the only thing with it for me. But that's all I got, buddy. This has been absolutely amazing episode, though. I was not expecting to talk about all this stuff, but I'm really glad that we did all this because it's been really fun.
Yeah, not only did we talk about the Hurricanes, but advanced stats and the league.
Yeah,
and if you ever talk. I've had the consensus of if you ever try to talk to the NHL about growing the sport, it's like talking to a rock.
Yeah, that was one of the things that when Sam first came on before you jumped on, I was like, it's almost like they don't want to grow the league. It's like actually, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and talk about this with you if you want to stay for a couple of minutes, then we'll shut it down because I was going to close the show with this. You know how I make the analytical videos using the NHL footage?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew this going in. You can't monetize those videos. That's fine. It's not my footage. But lately, instead of just getting copyright claims, which means you can't monetize the video, they've been doing copyright strikes. If you get 3 of those on YouTube, your channel gets nuked. If you get 3 of them in 30 days. And a lot of the bigger hockey YouTubers have been having problems with that. And they said it was a glitch in the system and that they've corrected it. Here's why I think that that's not true. Do you remember when the NHL came out of post-lockout and they put it on the Outdoor Life Network or whenever it was? They took
I do not.
Yeah, this was a long time ago. They put it on the Outdoor Life Network, which eventually became Versus, which eventually became NBC
Versus.
Sports.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was what the year before they changed it to Versus. It was called the Outdoor Life Network. They did that because Bettman wanted to take the quick buck. It's the same thing with this really substandard ass coverage that you have on ESPN and TNT. And, it's like, which one's worse? Well, which broadcasting crew is it? And that for that particular game, it's like, I just don't see why they have these issues growing the game and everything. But it got to the point where it's like, I found out from doing the research and reading about this stuff, watching other videos about it that other creators put out, like apparently the NFL and NBA is pretty loose about letting people use their footage. NASCAR is really loose about it, and it helps grow their brand and everything. And I don't know how the MLB is about it, but I imagine that they're probably pretty loose with it. I can understand not being able to fully monetize a video. I could understand there being some sort of revenue sharing where the content creator only gets a fraction of the money.
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand if they're getting pissed off if you're just posting full games. Yeah, I can understand. But it's like for stuff like what I do, I think that, and stuff like what hockey psychology does and all that, I think that there should be some sort of standard where it's like they treat it like it's a documentary. They treat it like it's an analytical video. I'm not just posting a highlight. I'm breaking stuff down because, like, someone actually approached me the other day about using my Slavin video to coach some kids, and I said, be my guest. I was actually really happy about that. I told him, go ahead and show them, because he's like, I want to show them stuff about good gaps and how to block shots and all that. I'm like, that makes me happy. I would like to make money off of that, though, just because I can invest more in my product that would ultimately help the NHL. But for some odd reason, they want to fuck over small content creators, and there is absolutely no point in taking them to the court, because I guarantee you they have better lawyers than what I could fucking afford. And theirs are on speed dial.
Mine's within my family, so maybe I could get away with it.
I'll just start circumventing it through you then. I'll just let you do it. But yeah,
for those of you listening don't know, both my dad, my mom, and my sister, all lawyers.
If I ever get in trouble, I know where to go.
Yep, exactly. Another thing too about like with the NHL and not growing the game, my biggest complaint is the blackouts.
The blackouts are that's why I had to go out to watch last night. I didn't feel like going out to watch. I did. I made it worth it though. I had wings and cheese curds. I was very happy.
They make it so hard to watch the game. And I honestly, I hope we get into a trend to where the teams control their own broadcasting rights, and they are, and you can just stream them.
That's what it looked like Dallas was going towards with the victory.
I think that is where it needs to go to.
I do too, because then it's on the organization to take care of it. I don't think that'll ever happen for the playoffs, but for the regular season, I think you could at least make it happen. And it's like, that's one of the things why, so I want to start doing more prospect content. I'm going to try uploading some stuff from Flow Hockey just to see what it does. The one time I did upload something from Flow Hockey, it said nothing about a copyright claim. Oh, Nikishin video, no copyright claim stuff on it all. The KHL was totally cool with the footage. It's like
perfect.
So it's like I think I'm going to start concentrating on stuff like that more, because like it's not even so much a making the money thing. I don't want my channel to get randomly nuked.
Yeah.
If that happens, I will go to X exclusively.
Yeah. I completely understand. It's just I just don't think the NHL knows how to expand it. They're too stuck in their heads.
I think part of that's on Bettman, though, because he always goes for the quick dollar. That's how the NHL ended up on Outdoor Life Network and not back on ESPN, back when ESPN was good at covering hockey. Because
he's being represented by the owners, though.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's where the owners need to get in there and be like, hey, maybe we could do something different. But yeah, I like the idea of just having the streaming like in the hands of each individual organization, because it's pretty easy for me to watch games because I'm out of market. It should not be that way. I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I'm in South Carolina next year, because I'm in FanDuel's region for the Canes and the Braves both at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to figure out how I'm going to go about that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm definitely not getting cable. I'll probably do the FanDuel app thing, but I have to make the account for it, and it's going to be really annoying because every time that I've tried to use it, it just kind of sucks. So that's the one thing I got to figure out. I know a lot of people do VPNs and stuff. I'll figure something out. But all right, buddy, I am going to call it a day.
Yep,
I think I'm going to go eat a lasagna.
Yep. Well, I had fun. I thought.
Dude, this was a very, very good episode. Thank you so much for coming on. One of these days, I'll see if you guys want to do. I'm planning on doing Landfall Hour, my pregame show on Monday against Chicago. If any of you guys want to come on for that after I do the stat stuff and everything, I'll bring you all on if you want to. Yeah,
I might. It just depends how life goes for me that day. You never know when life strikes, you know.
Yeah, that's been me lately. That's why I haven't uploaded anything. Like even when we came back from Florida, we had to go back to the airport and get our bags because we didn't get them for an extra day.
Oh man.
Yeah, because the weather had hit up here. It was snowing. Like when we left Florida, we our original flight got canceled, so we had to go to Newark first, and then fly back to DC. And then we got one more comment here. Alex says, thanks for the talk. Always good to hear from y'all. Enjoy the weekend. Yes, thank you. And thank you for all the support and all the viewership and everything like that. We all really appreciate it. My friend, this has been fun. I will see you soon.
See ya, Brandon.
All right. And everybody else out there, take care. Make sure to follow Sam over at the Caniac Report. And what's your personal one again?
At Hurricane Sam 10. I can't post my own thoughts on my own thing just because when the Caniac Report is both me and Sam, we try to be central. A little bit more central in our beliefs.
That's part of the reason why I'm glad I've got my own thing. And then when I'm on Caniac sessions, I'm a little bit more tame. But when I'm on my own and I get pissed off about something,
exactly.
I don't hold it back. All right, buddy. Thank you again for joining me.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
All right, guys. That's going to be it for me today as well. Thank you very much for joining. But I really want some lasagna, and I'm going to find some hockey to watch. I might watch some Marksman tonight or something like that. And for those of you who follow over on X, I'm going to put up a poll over there about who you would like to see Slavin's defensive partner be. I try to put them up on YouTube in the community tab, but the community tab on YouTube, for some odd reason, it just doesn't like me sometimes. So I'll try to put it up on both. Feel free to vote twice. I don't care. But it will at least be over on X. Thank you guys. Take care. I will see you next time.